Hey folks, we are back on the Dev Twitch stream. My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a lead software engineer at Forum. Forum is a software that powers dev.
And my Wi-Fi is just completely not working at the moment. I can't even hear you, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, Christina's having some major internet issues this week, so she may stay on. She might drop off. It's not because she doesn't like our guests, but go ahead and introduce yourself anyways before we potentially lose you. Oh, she
I'll
can't.
hop
There's
off.
the
You
delay.
can say hello to
All
everyone.
right. Cool. That was briefly our developer advocate, Christina Gordon, troubleshooting some internet issues. I'm super stoked today. We have a bunch of friends of mine from Virtual Coffee, an inclusive community that we're going to talk about, and so many other things, getting close to Hacktoberfest. But before we all do that, can you folks all introduce yourself? I'll say, let's start with Bekah because you're showing up in my top left screen.
Hey, I'm Bekah. I am a front-end developer and creator and maintainer at Virtual Coffee, and I am also a career changer, so I've just been in tech a couple of years. I taught English before this, so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
Should I go next?
Yeah. You're the next Hollywood
hi.
square.
I am Dan. I am a maintainer at Virtual Coffee as well as a front-end developer. I live in Cleveland and been doing this for an awfully long time. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And we have the wonderful Kirk in the bottom left corner.
Hi, name's Kirk. I'm a software developer living in the Caribbean, born and raised. And yeah, I guess I'm also part of the Virtual Coffee maintainer team.
Awesome. Cool. So why don't we get things started with talking about Virtual Coffee? We can talk about this as much as all of you'd like to. Bekah, I think it's appropriate that you start because this how I first came to know Virtual Coffee. You sent out a tweet on Twitter, and that's how it started for me. But if you could just kind of go into that whole process of creating Virtual Coffee, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So that's what it was. This is why our name is very original because I said, would anybody like to meet up for Virtual Coffee? And then we just kind of stuck with it. But I lost my job during COVID, and so I was looking for work pretty much for the first time interviewing. I worked with Dan before and continue to work with Dan. But so I just needed some community. It was a really hard time for everybody, and I knew that other people needed that too. So we started meeting up once a week, and then that turned to
Okay.
twice a week. And then we started doing events and things. And Hacktoberfest last year was a big moment for us because it really solidified us as a community working together. A lot of
Okay.
horizontal mentorship going on, and people just being really excited to be in a positive environment and to work together through all sorts of, coding issues, but also to be friends with each other. So that's where we are today. And you can check us out at virtualcoffee.io if you're interested in joining. We do Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern and Thursdays at noon Eastern. So you can check us out tomorrow.
Cool. All right. So I don't know how much we want to talk about Virtual Coffee, but maybe like how all of us maybe came to it, or we can talk about like your role within Virtual Coffee as well, because the three of you are definitely on the what's the word? I guess I don't want to say directors because that's a weird thing to say, but like I guess kind of like the co-leaders of the community.
Yeah, that phrasing we worked on a lot because it was hard to figure out. We went with maintainers because since we're sort of mostly a developer community, we had that vocabulary available to us, I suppose. So,
Okay.
Becca and I worked together, and yes, she used to tell the story as I fired her, and then she started Virtual Coffee, which I was ready for.
I
And then
didn't say it this
I know, and
time.
now I don't
Okay, I
even
was
know what to
being
do.
nice.
It's part of the
Oh,
like
it's
legend.
all coming out. It's all coming out.
I mean, it was the beginning of the pandemic, everything shut down, and so Becca was contracted for me, and all of my contract work dried up, and so that's what happened. And so we're all kind of adrift. A lot of people were, and so Becca started just those ones. I don't think I went to the first few, but I was, I started joining pretty early, and yeah, Becca mentioned Hacktoberfest. It was kind of when we all pulled together. I say we all. I mean this kind of crew, and Sarah, who's not here today, but is our other community maintainer, and built sort of. I don't know. We had the idea that we like DigitalOcean does Hacktoberfest, right? And we'll talk about more about I think the more details about Hacktoberfest in a little bit, but it's a cool event, and we thought it'd be cool to get our members, help our members do it because there's a lot of friction involved with getting involved in open source. So
for sure.
we pulled together and did this whole thing. Excuse me, and yeah, it was fun. And excuse me, I'm sorry, my voice is like going already. But after that, it kind of started rolling, and we got this kind of crew of maintainers, and yeah, I don't know. We kind of went from there. So that's kind of my story. I'm not sure what. Oh, you were asking what how we got involved. So maybe Kirk can tell his whole story too.
I remember it like it was yesterday. Picture it, Sicily, 19. Nah. I mean, I think a lot of us, especially those who were there in sort of like the first few months of VC, had the similar experience of, hey, this Becca lady's talking on Twitter. What's she talk about? Oh, that sounds cool. Check that out. And then I feel like the follow-up story for the maintainers was really like last year's Hacktoberfest, right? And that's when Becca and Sarah were like, hey, we should do something really cool. And they foolishly reached out to me, Dan, and Brian. And we were like, I remember there was so much of like, are you sure you want to pick us? Because, we're, and they're like, yeah, no, we're totally sure. I'm like, okay, but, just, you know what you're getting into. But yeah, and that turned out to be really fun. And we just like working together so much that we were like, hey, we should just keep doing this if you guys want to keep working on cool stuff in this community. And we were super down for it. And that's kind of how that happened. And I feel like that's a general theme of virtual coffee. It's just a lot of like, hey, I want to do this cool thing. And someone says, yeah, I'm down to help with that. And then people go, hey, that actually worked out really well. You want to keep doing this. And that's pretty much how we went from Hacktoberfest to like a monthly challenge that became like monthly challenges in general. That became like, hey, we've done all these cool challenges. We should celebrate the work. And that became lightning talks. And there's been like a very, I think, like reasonable progression of let's do some cool things together. Let's celebrate the cool things we did. Let's get more people involved to also do some cool stuff.
Yeah, no, for
And I
sure.
think
And
too,
then
like being able to, I was gonna say, just like lean on each other and the different things that we can learn from each other was a huge part of that experience as well. And so being able to do that and talk through things and like Kirk, Dan, Sarah, Brian, and I sometimes just really like to move forward really fast, I think. And then Kirk will always be the one who's like, well, maybe we should think about this for a minute. So like I always very much appreciate like when all of us are going forward, having and we've all had our moments of being the person that slows down the thought process, but that's important, I think, to be deliberate about those things. And I very much appreciated Kirk being that person in Hacktoberfest that allowed us to set up a lot of things that support us this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's so many other things. I mean, you mentioned the lightning talks, Kirk. We started doing lunch and learns, so like those are typically about an hour with like Q&A and stuff. Those have been really great. And as somebody who I do help out in the community a bit, but as like somebody who's a part of the community, it was something that really resonated with me. Like when I saw the tweet from Becca, I think it was like it's more than a year now. It's like might have been June of not 2020, I think, sometime around there. But yeah, I came in, and you know, like when you don't know people, you know, there's still a bit of like, who are these people, kind of like, I mean, I'm pretty extroverted, so I have no problem talking to people, but it, it's it's kind of it was a weird phenomenon because it's the first time I've become close to people like you three, even though I've literally never met you in in real life, which because before virtual coffee, I didn't really hang out with anybody online like Twitter. It's like I had people I would talk to, but you know, just through chats or you know, tweets or maybe DMs. But so there was that, and then just uh, I've seen a lot of people grow in virtual coffee over the past year, and so like folks that weren't necessarily willing to try certain things because they didn't feel like they had a safe space necessarily to, you know, even practice, like even the lightning talks and like the lunch and learns. It's like a great place where if you're potentially nervous to give a talk somewhere, I think it's like a great place to give one because everybody's super supportive and they just want you to do well, you know, and there's constructive feedback and stuff. And then there's so many, we can talk about a lot of the things that go on in virtual coffee, like it revolves around the Slack right now, but it's kind of evolved into more than the Slack. Like we've started some initiatives, like I don't know if you want to maybe talk about those. Like we've had some folks like Ray Deck do some initiatives. Oh, Christina may or may not be back here. We'll see. Hey, okay. They fixed the
It's at
internet.
27 megabytes now instead of 1.
Oh, and nice.
We'll
That's
see how
pretty
this
good.
goes.
Okay.
Hi, friends.
Hello.
Well,
Yeah.
just quickly to your point, Nick, one of the things I think I want to touch on, and as you kind of went through what virtual coffee does, so like there, I do appreciate like we have a lot of initiatives that are trying to get people out of their comfort zone, but like still in a comfort zone, like you know, comforting you
Yeah.
while you're out of your comfort zone. Um, but I think there's something to be said for virtual coffee. I think makes it really easy from the other side, as in if you want to support someone, I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of people have appreciated like this is a great space where like I don't necessarily like I just want to like be a positive influence in the space, right?
Hmm.
And I think a lot of
Yeah.
folks get value out of, yeah, you know, if I want to just like make someone's day better, I can hop in help in pairing and I can help someone through a problem, or I can
Yeah.
listen to their lunch and learn, or I can give them feedback on an article. And it feels like that was something that people were looking for as well. Just like a part of tech
Yeah.
that's not me trying to show how smart I am or like trying to hustle for a job or like hot takes on Twitter, but just like I just want to be able to help some folks out a little bit every day, you know, in a
Yeah.
way that's not consuming my entire existence. So I think I don't know, that's one of the things I appreciate about the community, you know. Helping folks
Yeah.
makes you feel better. And it's like, oh, this is a great space where I can always do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's, you know, there's a lot of communities in Slack, and I've been in some other ones where it's just like 60,000 messages of like, I'm getting this error. What do I do? You know, and that's not what this is at all. I mean, we have a help and pairing channel, but, you know, typically people try to get as specific as possible to give as much context to get some help. But, you know, you know, we have our meetups twice a week, and then, you know, we discuss various topics, not always tech and stuff, but then there's like, we give a summary at the end and folks can check out like some of the links people shared and so on. And there's like one of the things that I think is really been amazing for the community is Dan set up the co-working space. So it's basically an eternal Zoom room that will anybody can join any time of day because people are in completely different time zones. But it's a great space when, like you're saying, Kirk, somebody needs help. Hey, go meet me in the co-working room. Or sometimes it's just people literally hanging out in there, just maybe not talking too much, just doing some work, you know. But then typically when I've been in there, conversations just start up, and then somebody will talk about something like, oh yeah, we'll try this and stuff. And I've found that to be really great as well in the community.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool, and that's one of the things that we have. The community really started with Bekah doing Zoom, once a week and or twice a week. Well, it started, I guess, once, and then now it's twice. But
Yeah.
that's been something that we have, but we realized and also have held on to is the sort of intimacy of the face-to-face, contact is one of the things that we build everything around, right? And so, because there's a lot
Yeah.
of everybody's been in Slacks and Discords, and there's some great ones and some ones that you join and look around and leave, right? And for us, it's like how can we enable people to be like to make connections and not on scale, right? We're not like
Yeah. Yeah.
every time like scale comes up in any of our conversations, we like toss it out the window because we don't want like that's not what we're optimizing for. Uh,
Yeah.
and so the co-working room was sort of an extension of that is how can we provide a way for people to hang out, or get help
Hmm.
or whatever, in a way that we can sort of keep safe, but people don't have to pay for accounts or like limited to the free Zoom account or the 45-minute whatever the limit is for free accounts or things like that.
Yeah.
And so it is, yeah, and it's worked out pretty well, and it's pretty much always going. I mean, there's sessions. I mean, I call them there's people in there, at some point in the day, pretty much every day, which is really cool too.
Yeah. No, for
I think
sure.
too,
And
I would say for me, I'm a mom of 4 kids, and so at first I thought this was just going to be a pandemic thing, and we're still in the pandemic,
yeah.
but I know that it's not going to be because there's a number of other people out there that don't have the opportunity to get out and go to things like conferences or meetups. The closest meetup to me is an hour away, and so by the time you drive there, spend 2 hours there, drive an hour back, that's just that's not an opportunity that I can have. And the
Yeah.
the lack of community too, if you work remotely and you don't have that support system of other developers, can be a real challenge to kind of navigate through and understand where you're at and how to ask questions and things like that. So, like having a community of people that you can trust and you can turn to for these things, like go to a lunch and
Yeah.
learn it and get understanding, but also know that yeah, you can ask questions, and finding ways to provide that space to provide opportunities for more people is definitely a focus.
Yeah. No, for sure. And uh kind of talk a little more like administrative side of things. Like say somebody's interested in joining virtual coffee, like what's that whole process look like?
So to join virtual coffee, you have to come to a Tuesday or Thursday first. And we know that's a challenge for a lot of people, but for us, that closeness and intimacy really starts in those conversations.
Yeah.
It allows you to see how we talk to each other and the things that we talk about. And then there's a membership form that you fill out that helps us to understand how to support you as part of the community. And then, basically that's it. So it's to provide support for the entire community, and that's
Yeah.
how we do it.
And in terms of like operations, like right now this is like completely volunteer based for like anybody that's participating. Um so like uh in terms of how, like, because there's certain things we need to pay for in the community, so like I think this, we don't have a pro Slack version, but we have like a Zoom and stuff, and that's come, I think, typically from some members of the community, or there's also like I know recently you released a GitHub sponsors page where folks have also been donating there to just help the community out. um, and to be clear, there's no profit going on in this. It's literally just to to get things, like any kind of things we need running, to pay for. That's how that's operating, as far as I know. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. The Yes, we were paying for pretty much everything out of our pockets, and so the sponsors we
Yeah.
have, I don't know, 20 something monthly sponsors now, which is amazing, and yeah, that's really covering a lot of our bills. I mean, there's I mean, anybody who's run software knows things cost money. There's free versions of stuff, but at a certain point,
Yeah.
the free versions don't cut it. And so we have some sponsorship through GitHub sponsors, and I assume maybe we'll put a link in the chat for that too.
Yeah, I'll drop
But
that.
there's links on our website to it and everything as well.
Yeah.
And GitHub sponsors has actually been an interesting and very cool experience as well. Just from a technical standpoint, I had never messed with it before, but they make it really easy and to work with them with GitHub, and I don't know, it's really easy to plug everything in and get some some support, which is cool. And so that money coming in helps cover the bills, and then helps us like be able to maybe provide some even cooler stuff, in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that might have been a little more dry, but I just kind of wanted to give some context to how it operates, because it really isn't a for-profit, at least the way we are right now. So, but I want to touch on a few other things. Maybe you can speak to this, Bekah. Like, so the community started from your tweet, and then we started with Slack, and then we started doing Zooms, and then you have a podcast now as well for Virtual Coffee. And I'm curious a podcast is not necessarily a novel idea, but I'm just curious what the thinking behind there was. You're like, we've just got like a lot of great folks that we want to speak to their stories, or was it just kind of like YOLO, hey, let's just do a podcast? Or
I was just laughing because the podcast, the idea was, Bekah was like, I want to do a podcast, and then we did a podcast.
That's how the
Okay.
stream
To be
works
fair.
too. So it's okay.
I think it was
That's
actually
okay.
one of our members, Cameron, was saying, when is the VC podcast coming out? And I was like,
okay,
it's now. We're gonna do it. Like, I've been
Yeah.
wanting to start one. And
Dan,
we have
it's
so
happening.
many great members. And we had like our very first guest was pretty amazing. You might know him. His name is Nick Taylor. And you should go back and listen to that episode.
that's not why I mentioned
But-
it, by the way.
We know you like to plug things.
Yeah.
It is great to highlight everyone's stories and to learn from them through that experience. And, I've learned a lot through, just figuring out what I'm doing, talking to people. The first episode, I apologize if it was rocky listening to me, because it was like, I have this list of questions that I need to get answered. And then at some point it was like, no, I'm here to help people tell their stories, right? And so it's about,
Yeah.
yes, the questions help to provide an outline, but the story, the narrative is what they're talking about in the moment, and allowing them to share the things that they're interested in talking about.
Yeah.
Kirk has
No, and
become a big orange square.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, technical issues happen.
I'll be back.
Yeah. Island internet, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, no, there's been a lot of great stories. Like, I love Jonathan Young's episode on digital gardening. There was one on mental health with Rahat and Cameron. One with Mike Rogers. I mean, there's so many of them. Like, just I don't have the link to the podcast right now. I believe it's on the website though that I dropped before. I don't know if you can find that maybe. Okay, cool. But yeah, no, it's been I've been enjoying just listening to everybody's stories. It's been really great.
I have a
actually got to
question
meet-
after you say
yeah.
say what you want to say first, because we're still
I
on
was
this
going to
topic.
say, so I went to a conference last week, KCDC, Kansas City Developer Conference, and I got to meet some of our members in real life, and Tom Cudd was on the podcast, and I got to meet him. Mark Noonan is going to be on the podcast. It was amazing to be able to sit down with people I never met and then just continue a conversation, because it wasn't like that awkward of, I'm really awkward when I meet new people, but it wasn't like that at all. It was great to be able to continue that connection in a different way.
Yeah, and just like from a personal standpoint, the way Bekah said conversation is totally right, because it's just a chance for us to talk to people individually, which we do our we do our breakout rooms like small, so we talk to people, and I have met most of these people on Zoom, but getting to really just like listen to some like actually talk and hear people's stories and stuff has been really really fun. And it's just it's cool to do the podcast, but it's also just like been great to, I don't know, get to know people better through, well, as you know, as we interview them and stuff. It's been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of the breakout room, I think one of the things I love about virtual coffee is like I think the initial thing started, like in a tech context for, because we all work in tech, but like the conversations aren't always about tech, which I find refreshing, like, because like a lot of these communities, it's like, okay, welcome to the whatever tech Discord or Slack, so like that's what you're talking about. But here it's like, sometimes we've talked about silly things, some more serious things, like, but tech as well, because I mean, tech is the thing that kind of brought us all together. But, sometimes things get personal, and it's just really great hearing people's stories or things they're going through, and like that they're able to share it with us. There's just, it seems a little more human to me, if that makes sense. It's not just like, why isn't this compiling, kind of thing.
I mean, while we're here, like, why isn't it compiling? Like, can we drill down?
I knew you were gonna go. It's because it's not written in Elm, Kirk. That's why.
Yeah,
That's why.
There we
just
go.
let's
There
just
we go.
jump in the co-working room after this, and we'll go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Christine, I want to hear your question.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was letting you all finish your train of thought. It's fine. This may have been asked when I wasn't on here. So if it was, just
Okay.
skip the question. But I'm wondering, I know, and this is not a jab at you at all, Bekah, because I ask you this stuff all the time. But uh, how do you all handle all of this stuff, right? So like you have all these things going on. It sounds like you have a good community. There are some people who are doing like more maybe than others just because they're setting it up and doing the stuff. How are you handling a podcast, the virtual coffee group, all the things you're doing, plus your jobs, plus your life? Hello, people with children and other things. So how are you managing all that? I think that's important to talk about.
Am I?
Probably know the answer to that.
The world is
I-
on fire.
I have leaned into this philosophy I heard on our podcast called Structured YOLO. So Nick talks about it in the podcast episode. So for me, I'm a big planner, and I always have to like have all of the things down and go through all of the things. And this past year with doing so many different things has been a lot of, I need a general sense of what I'm doing this week, but I have to be flexible and willing to pivot because of the number of things that I'm doing and being able to take care of different community members or issues or, help people with what their needs are. And so for me, it's about just constantly evaluating where I'm at, recognizing when I hit the stress point and trying to create better boundaries for myself because I'm also like, that looks amazing. I'm going to work on that too, I'm not great at it, but it's just that constant, how can I do this and do all of the things that you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been trying to, I mean, it is a lot of work. It builds up, and we have been actually, and I think successfully recently been trying to come up with ways to have members do more of the administrative stuff or whatever, but in a way that we can provide structure and guidance. So it's not just like we just toss a whole ball of whatever at a person, because we
Yeah.
tried. I mean, we've also like tried that, and we've been learning on the job, so to speak. But we've recently started creating some teams of members, with and team leaders
Yeah.
to help with things like for AV. Bogdan is doing our leading our AV team, right? And so it's just helping with editing YouTube and stuff like that, which is like
Yeah.
one of those things. It's just like you don't really think about, but takes up so much time, and
Yeah.
helping with running our coffee, our weekly, twice weekly. Is it bi-weekly? No, bi-weekly is every 2 weeks, right? Whatever. Running the
I
coffee
always get
events.
messed
Bi-weekly
up
can
with it.
mean either.
It can mean
I
either.
know.
Yes.
Why do they do
That's
that?
horrible.
Why?
That's
What?
horrible.
That doesn't even make any sense. So I call it twice weekly.
Yeah, twice
There we
weekly.
go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we have members leading breakout rooms. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but like that's
Yeah.
one of the things that
Yeah.
helps. That takes pressure off, and also like it's not just about taking pressure off of the maintainers group. It's
Mhm.
also empowering our members to do things, and
Yeah.
we get new ideas from them. Obviously, as everybody gets excited about things. It's cool. It's been really
Yeah.
fun, and so that's another like avenue for managing all this
Yeah.
stuff aside from like the personal level, which
Yeah.
yeah, I don't always do a great job of either.
I think those are good points, though. I think any successful community, you're going to, one, create boundaries where you can, also delegate, and delegate in the sense that, just like you said, empowering other people, not just for you, because you can get burned out quickly, but giving over control sometimes is hard for people, right? And if you're the person that has a lot of stuff and you really want to build a community, giving over some of that control and delegating that can really, really help. And it sounds like you all are doing a great job. So.
Feels like an accusation a little bit.
No, against me. I have a problem with that.
You can trash talk our
It is.
internet.
I think too, working on creating clear communication, clear lines of communication, and being open and honest with each other, which, I think initially I didn't do a great job of doing that all of the time. I made like assumptions about what other people were doing or saying, or wanted to spare feelings by not having hard conversations. And, I've definitely
Yeah.
learned that you don't spare feelings at the cost of someone's growth and a relationship, right? So it can, there are really hard moments that come with it. But I think
Mhm.
that one of the nice things is everyone's been willing to work on that. And if something doesn't work, we say like, this is not working. What else
Yeah.
can we do? Right. Until we find something that works. And that might not work in 2 months, and we'll find something else.
Yeah. And to speak to the point about people stepping up, it's they want to do it. It's not like because I've volunteered for lots of stuff throughout my life. Like, oh, we need a treasurer for the team. Can you do it? I'm like, yeah, nobody else is gonna do it, are they? Right? Okay, yeah, I'll do it. But this is more like, hey, I want to do this. Like we're not forcing anybody. Like. There's no like guilt tripping. It's people. The questions get thrown out there like, hey, does somebody like the AV, for example, does somebody want to help with that? And Bogdan was pretty stoked to work on that, and there's other people that work with him, I believe. I was one of them, but I got super busy, so I feel guilty now, but that's on me. But yeah, and I think that shows where the strength in a community is. And like, I mean, I've seen this on other stuff, like like even dev.to, that's where like I started a lot of my stuff with community, and like I genuinely wanted to make that community better. It's like nobody forces you to be a moderator or anything, but I wanted to do it because I wanted the community to be better and stuff. And you see this in a lot of communities, so it's nice to see it happening here too.
Kirk,
Yeah,
I know you were gonna.
well, I think like it's weird because we get a lot of questions about like, oh, where's the community going? Like, how many, like do you guys want 4,000 members? Well, I don't, and that's something we do have to think about, like, what's the future of the community? But in terms of like general metrics for what is a healthy community, you
Yeah.
know, growth is good, but like if number of people in your Slack is your only metric for like how the community's doing, I don't think that's
Yeah.
necessarily a good metric. But things more like, oh, when we do have like opportunities for support, are people like very willing and able to provide that support? That feels like a much like I take that as
Yeah.
a much higher barometer for okay, where things are probably okay right now. Or like when I
Yeah.
see something I always like, and I've seen it a few times recently, there have been people who I've seen transition from asking for help in help and pairing to trying to
Yeah.
provide help for other people in help and pairing. That's like a huge thing. That
Yeah.
makes me super
Yeah.
happy. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that means like whatever intents we have for this place being a place where like you can both like support and be supported, that feels really good. And that feels like kind of important. I think with a lot
Yeah.
of other communities, sometimes people feel pigeonholed, like I'm always the one providing the support, or they're
Yeah.
like, I can't help anyone. So they just like ask the questions and like head out. Um, but that's not how people work, right? Like we're all on different stages of our journey. Everyone has
Mhm.
places where they're the expert and where they're not the expert. So if people can have like that healthy feeling of, well, today I need to ask the questions, or like today
Yeah.
I need to like help or try and help. Those are the types of things where I'm going, okay, this is a good space, because
Hmm.
that's not something I've seen in other places. And once I see it, I'm like, okay, that feels really important, you know?
Yeah.
Or even in the Zooms, and it reminds me of what you do on this stream, where you're like, listen, we're real people living in real life. It's not our jobs to be perfect. It's just our jobs to try and do a good job, you know? So sometimes, like, someone might have an audio hiccup, a video hiccup, you know, some like weird background noise in Slack, or like during the Zooms. And the response is like, oh no, you've upset our perfect garden. You know, it's like, yeah, that's fine.
You
Um,
stepped on the daisies.
yeah, yeah.
Get
So
off the grass.
we're a
Yeah.
family friendly place. We're small child friendly. You know, like, it's just, you don't have to like try and hide the parts of your life that you don't think are perfect to be here. As long as everyone's just like
Yeah.
trying to appreciate each other, that feels good. So
I I think those were great metrics that you mentioned. You know, I am a community manager, technically now, like developer advocate, but those are the metrics I have to look at too. And that was something that I was
Yeah.
like really adamant about at first. Like, yeah, we can have numbers as in this many people signed up for this, or we have this many people in our repo, but that's not as important as, are they active there, or
Yeah.
are people coming in and using this thing, and then are they helping each other, which we've had lots of great people in our repo, like, you know, helping other people and answering questions, same with form.dev. And so I think those, just like you said, are so much more important to look at
Mhm.
versus like, because you can have, you know, 5,000 people in your community and no one chatting, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is the
Exactly. Yeah.
number
Yeah.
if no one's doing anything? So I think that was a great point, Kurt.
Yeah. I forget who tweeted it out. It was earlier this week, I think, or maybe late last week, and they were talking about metrics in terms of like software, but it kind of applies to like what we're talking about too. And it's really about like how many people are like adopting your software, you know, coming back, you know, and are satisfied, you know. I mean, not that we do that kind of survey for the community, but like, but you know what I mean? It kind of ties into kind of what you were saying about the metrics, you know, like who cares if, you know, 2 million people downloaded your trial of your software, you know, how many are actually buying it or subscribe to it and using it, you know, like not that I'm trying to turn people into pieces of software, but it was just more, I found that tweet interesting about metrics, so I tried to
And I
tie
think
it in there. I don't know if it worked.
I I was talking to somebody who leads a DevRel team about metrics fairly recently, and I was saying how I think a lot of metrics are just not suitable for what we're doing either. Because
Yeah.
for us, we have a decent number of active people, but we have a lot of people who used to be very active and can't be here anymore because they've had kids or they've switched jobs or they found their first job, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, there's this concept of like, how are you rippling out into the community? Do you have active members here and what are they like now? Are they supporting each other? Are they creating a
Yeah.
positive and welcoming space? Because if they do here, they're more likely to spread that out where they go. And really, that's what I'm most excited about. Like, how does this impact tech on a larger scale to make it a more welcoming and supportive place?
I think that's a great point. That's something that
Yeah.
Marie Mosley brought up from CodePen when we talked to her, because they always talk about it as like CodePen cohorts. Like they always see this group of people
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
while that are like really, really active. They're really, you know, helping each other. And then the next group comes in, right? Like there was a time where I was super, super active on there. We were all supporting each other. We all got jobs, did other things. So we're not as active, but that doesn't mean that that impact isn't still there, you know, from the community doing more. And so, yeah, I think that's a wonderful point.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. It's yeah, I can definitely relate that too. When I started working at Forum, I was like super active all the time on dev and doing moderation, and like
Yeah.
just because of work. I mean, I'm still active there, but not as active as I was just because of work. But
Yeah.
so yeah. Um I don't know if you all want to start talking about maybe Preptember or stuff, or is there before we move on, is there anything, maybe any final notes about virtual coffee before we kind of start talking about some of the initiatives we're gonna get going for like pre-Hacktober and Hacktoberfest? I said that wrong, and I'm singing.
Walton's gonna show up. They're gonna revoke your Hacktoberfest license.
Yeah,
All last year, I
Um,
called it Oktoberfest when I came in and had to work on Hacktoberfest, and I was like, we're not
yeah,
drinking. I mean, you could drink if you
yeah,
want. That's
yeah,
not what
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Hacktoberfest.
I wore
I
lederhosen for
couldn't
all
get
of
it.
Hacktoberfest, so it's yeah. Oh yeah. Go Germany and coding, I guess. Um, anyways, with that awkward segue, why don't we talk about Preptember? So I guess maybe Christina, you want to maybe tell us what Preptember is, like in a nutshell?
How about I let you all, since you all are doing Preptember, and this year we're
Way
not.
to deflect, deflect.
Send it to Kirk.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, the idea I think is, so you can't talk about Preptember without Hacktoberfest, because Preptember is like to get ready for Hacktoberfest. So I guess
Yeah.
Hacktoberfest is just where the tech community at large, although like very recently, I think it's been kind of, DigitalOcean has been the organization that's really sort of like spearheading like awareness of it and promotion of it, but it's for everyone, where we encourage people to participate in open source software contributions.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone here, I think on the stream in some way, like we've all spent time in an open source environment. Some of us work with companies that have open source products, or we work in an open source product itself.
Yeah,
But that it's, while you're in that space, you think it's like, oh, this is just the natural way of things. But there are very many people, both early career devs and senior devs, who've never contributed to open source. They may use
yeah,
them, but they don't really know how to get into it. So Hacktoberfest is just an initiative to get more into that. And Preptember sort of came about as people realized, well, the actual act of contributing is great, but the environment that makes it so that people actually want to contribute is also important.
yeah,
So Preptember, there's sort of two main activities. Mainly, you will see people with open source repos getting them ready for contributions. Getting
Mm-hmm.
them up to
hmm
date. Like looking at, just a general spring cleaning and sprucing up. In the same way you might do for any other events. Like, oh, I want people to come in. Let's do some housekeeping and get this great. But one of the things we've been doing at VC is also thinking about it from the contributor side. And it's like, what can they do in the month to kind of get ready? And we've been looking especially at like issues, what is an issue? What's a good issue? What's a helpful issue? What's the
Yeah.
procedure for doing it in a way that like provides a maximum benefit on both sides?
yeah,
And I mean, dev form is a place where you guys have spent a lot of time, I know, like working on specifically that, like how to make it as smooth as possible for someone to go, I would like to help, to here's what you have to do, so like we can help you help us help you help us.
Yeah. Always work to be done, but yes, we do.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, Preptember is that time where, just like Kirk said, like next week I'm going to be in our repo just crazy trying to make sure everything's good. This is something I've been doing
yeah,
anyways for our bug smashes we've been doing, but making sure it's good. One thing to note for anyone who is doing this and wants something from DigitalOcean, like the previous years, like a t-shirt or something, last year, and I'll have to go back and look at the rules for this year, but last year they made it so
yeah,
maintainers have to put Hacktoberfest on the issues that they want worked on, and you're not supposed to pick
yeah,
other issues necessarily, because there was a lot of spam happening, and it was a lot of pressure on
yeah,
maintainers, especially of smaller, repositories and stuff, getting things that weren't super useful. So that's something to be aware of. That you do want to look for a Hacktoberfest label. Labels are in GitHub. They're usually on your issues. If you go to the issues page, it usually says go to labels. So you just want to look for the Hacktoberfest label and work on one of those issues.
yeah. And I think the other thing, I'll try and find the post that the dev team had from last year. But the other thing too is I believe you have to add the topic Hacktoberfest to your project on GitHub. So
Yeah.
like where it has, typically you'll see like it's a JavaScript project, TypeScript, Java, whatever. You have to add the Hacktoberfest there. And there's I'll definitely take a peek for that article, because it definitely, and I'm pretty sure if you go to DigitalOcean's Hacktoberfest site, which we can drop, they'll explain all that. Yeah, and
I don't know if it's a must to do both anymore. It's like either you put it on the topic for the project, or if you're doing it on a like per issue basis, on the issue or the PR, you have to have the Hacktoberfest tag.
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah, because like Christina was saying, we don't necessarily want all the issues worked on, because there's some that the team needs to work on. So yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah, and some of that's good. Again, good management by the people who are maintainers of the repo. Like we have a forum team label. So if we put that on, that means, hey, forum team can work on this, or we have like, anyone type labels. We do have in the about section, if you like go on forum/forum, it says community discussion feedback Hacktoberfest. So it is up for Hacktoberfest, but we also pick issues. One, we pick issues, we kind of curate issues, because sometimes issues are put in by the community. And like Kirk was saying, what is an issue? What's good? What's something that someone can start contributing to? And not all issues are good. And so we want to make sure some of the issues that we're putting out there have enough context so that people can go in and be like, okay, I'm going to work on that. Us at Forum, we have a lot of issues, so not all the issues are great. So we want to really help the community be able to contribute by picking select ones and giving more context where we can.
Yeah, and we did a big curation of them. Sorry, go ahead, Bekah.
Say one of the things that we did last year was, I think it was last year, at a contributing.md guide to our repositories with instructions for how to do things. And I think Kirk worked a lot on that, and we added discussions to our public repository this time around and added that to the contributing.md guide. So if somebody wants to propose something, then start it in discussions and then move it to an issue as needed. And I know that's different for a lot of people's workflows. So always looking through the repository and seeing how they communicate is really important, because like you all said, you have a lot of stuff and a lot of contributors. So contributors can do a good job of making it easier on maintainers by just reading through how things are done first.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's the other thing too is, the reason why those things are put in place it really is to help the contributor, but it's also to be able to manage these things a lot better. So like we have, for example, issue templates in GitHub, we have pull request templates, and those are there not to be annoying. It's so we can get as much information about something, or just the stuff we require so we can review something, and so it's a good way also for us to it's to help avoid also the back and forth. Like if somebody just says, I don't know, I clicked this button and it doesn't subscribe me to the blog post or something like that, but there's no context aside from just they push the button, so like that's why we're saying, like, can you show the steps to reproduce it? Maybe it isn't reproducible, but like, just providing as much context as possible, screenshots if it's something in the UI, like that. Those things are really there to help both sides of the contribution process. And I'm just smiling. I use in the stream chat. I think it's pretty late for her, so thanks for popping in, IU. Yeah, and there's just a lot of things that go into there to really. I mean, a good project will have a lot of these guardrails in place to just make the experience a lot better for both sides. Because nobody really wants to waste each other's time, like if you're going back and forth, because it's not like you're speaking to this person directly. It's like you're going to post a message in an issue or a pull request, somebody on the maintainer side might respond the next day, so like imagine if you have a back and forth, it could go over the course of a week, like, so trying to avoid that too, because people have other things to do. Like I think in our case it's a little different. We're getting paid to work in open source, but not everybody does. Like I'm a maintainer on other projects that I don't get paid for. So I think it's always important, to be mindful that there's always people behind these projects, it's not just like, hey, why is my PR not merged, or like, what do you mean, why'd you close this, or or like, you didn't get back to me yet, last, like, I can think of an example. Last year I was on vacation, and so like somebody was working on a pull request, and then I didn't they didn't say anything negative at all. They had their pull request up, and like a week later I finally responded and I said, oh, hey, just got back from vacation, checking it out now, like you know it's it you have to be kind to people on both sides. It's super important. I know people always talk about code, but like people are so important in like just so many things in life. But I mean, like, you know especially something like this, it's just super important to just remember that, because like a lot of times, in my experiences, a lot of folks are typically just kind, but it's the internet, so there are assholes out there. It does happen occasionally. But I maybe Christina can speak to this more, but I think we've been pretty fortunate in our repository generally. But I see her smiling, so maybe that's not the case.
Overall, yes.
Yeah.
Overall, it's been good. I mean, I think there's two things there, and anyone else can put in points right after this if they want. That one, just like the same way, I think it was Kirk that mentioned this within the virtual code communities, that when you're asking questions, or maybe it was Nick, I don't know, one of you said this just a second ago. When you're asking questions, you want to try to be as specific as possible, right? And that's like a big thing with code. When you're trying to get help, you want to be specific. Same thing with a repository. We do a lot of times get something that's like very, very vague, and I comment and I try to dig in a little bit, but other maintainers don't have time for this, and they'll close your issue. And they're not being mean, they're not being bad, they just don't have time to like try to dig in and figure out your issue. So if you want help, or you want to contribute, or there is a bug or something you want to report, just be as like specific as you can, and that will be really helpful. And then the other point, just like Nick said, just be kind. Be kind as much as you can. There's times when you want something that you think is really, really important in for a project, you're really passionate. So a lot of times what I found is like people who are a little bit more not as kind, they're really passionate about something, right? Like they're really passionate about dev, or they're really passionate about form, and they really want something, and you're not doing that thing, and it's frustrating. And they're just not communicating in a way that's going to get what they want, basically, or understand that that's something you can't do. And I think all of us just have to remember that we're all humans and trying to do the best we can. But
Yeah.
I think Dan set up forms for our issues, and that I think is really helpful. Dan, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Oh man, I was going to say something else too, but it doesn't matter. We were talking about, what I was going to say was it's part of this. All right. So so writing an issue, just like Christina was saying, it's actually a skill to learn, right? How to submit how to write an issue, whether it's as a consumer of a repository or as a maintainer. And one of the things that can grease the gears, grease? Whatever. One of the things that can make things a little smoother is issue templates that are available for everybody. And you've probably seen these. I think Nick mentioned them. And they've been around for a while. If you have a repository, you can create issue templates. And so when you go to when a user goes to create a new issue, they can choose from like whatever you decide, bug report or whatever, and you can preload some stuff in there. And then now GitHub has released a new beta for their issues software, which is called, one of the features of it is forms. And so it's like an extension of issue templates where you can create forms in YML and basically provide like a label, like a form for somebody to fill out, that it's still like the thing that outputs is still an issue, but it's just nicely formatted, and there's a chance for them to answer all of the questions. And the problem with issue templates that I've seen a lot is people don't delete the help text and stuff like that, and it gets like dumped in there.
Yeah.
And so this solves that a bit. It also, you can like make things required, for instance. So we I forget one of our things is like, I have looked through the existing issues to make sure this doesn't exist, and just make them check
Yeah.
that box. It's not like there's anything that, we don't know that they actually did, but at least it will like let them know that this is something that we actually want them to do. And then you can add a lot of help text that is not never gets into the issue, that is just part of the form itself, which is great. And you can add images. It's just like another GitHub Markdown situation. So you can add whatever you want and make it look as cool as you want. And they've been really cool. So we pumped out. I don't know if anybody put a link in, but
yeah, I dropped a couple links there.
We have them on our VCIO site now, and so we started with like I think 4 or something like that. And if you want to go check out what they look like from a consumer point of view, not on the site, I'm sorry, on the GitHub repo. I'll find a link for that and drop it in a second. But it's been really cool, and I was very I was very excited about it for this reason. Creating an issue and figuring out what to put in it and all this stuff is hard. It's hard. I mean, it's a thing to learn, and you forget that after you've done it a million times. But this is just like another step forward in helping maintainers, kind of helping maintainers help the contributors help them. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like kind of get the information to the people who can do something about it. So I don't know. It's been cool, and it was very easy to set up. They're still the only problem right now is they're still in a private beta. You can request access to it, and I've gotten a couple organizations that have gotten into it now. So I think they're like opening the gates a little bit. So yeah, cool, it's neat. Cool.
Yeah. I think that's great too. Like, I mean, the issue templates and the PR templates are great, but I like the fact that like regular forms on the internet, you can make it required, so that they can't even proceed to submit it, and again, it's not to annoy the person creating the issue. It's really to make things sustainable in terms of when you maintain a project, and if somebody just wants to fire off doesn't work, they can't do that. They have to put a little thought into the issue they're creating. So I think that's a great. We don't have issue forms on forum right now, but I feel like we might have access, or we could get access. I'll see. I don't know.
We have access.
Oh, nice.
We just haven't done it yet.
Well,
okay.
There you go.
No, I think that's a good point though. I think having I think it was Rosie Sherry, she's on Twitter, said something about like make it harder for people to join your free community. And I don't think that's this is about a community, but I think this is in the same sense of like if you put a few barriers to someone putting something in, they're going to take a little more time to be thoughtful about it, or they're not going to put it in because they were just like angry or something and they're just wanting to put something, because we've had that sometimes, like people just putting something because they're mad and or they're not really thinking through what they're doing right then, or they're trying to force something through. Like a lot of repos have discussions, like GitHub discussions or discussions elsewhere on like a Discord or something for feature requests, and we'll have people try to put feature requests on our forum when we said, hey, we want to end this place. So just having a few little barriers is a way to help maintainers, but also help contributors, because a lot of times if you do that anyways, your issue is just going to be closed. So no one's going to deal with it anyways. And so it's better if you just take the time to really think through those things as well.
Yeah. And I can see the issue forms also, because I'm sure we're not the only repository, but occasionally a forum will get spammed with like fake issues. So if you had a forum where things are required, I could see that helping potentially prevent some of that spam. But
and you can turn off the note, like you can choose the option of whether you allow to still have a blank template, like the normal template or not, or no template, I suppose. But you can actually turn it off so that the only way to submit an issue is through one of the forms or templates you've set, and that exists. That's not part of the beta. That's just a part of the issues templates situation. But that's something I went back and forth on, but we've left it open now on ours. But I can see how that could be useful.
Cool.
You have to submit an issue template if you're going to do.
Nice. Another small feature there that has existed before is you can in that choose. So if you've seen that link that Becca posted, I think in the thing there, you see all these green buttons, and one of them is actually not a template at all, but a link to our discussion board. So
Mhm.
so we have like a big place. So somebody's like, I have whatever question idea thing. They go to submit a new issue, and it's just a link. And this is just something you can add in your anybody can add in their GitHub repositories. But I
Mhm.
found that to be kind of actually pretty cool too, because um, this way it's not like we have to put this in the README or something, like here's where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And people are used to maybe submitting a new issue for things, and this, like I said, we've been trying to try to guide people through the right direction so that so that both people, like them and us, can get the things done that we want to have done.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
cool
we
feature
added
too.
these recently. They're super helpful because we did like take out feature requests on the repo and stuff. We direct people to the right place or to our admin. So we have other repos, right? We have the self-host repo, we have the admin
Yeah.
docs. So we have these links that direct people to the right place, just so it helps them out too. Because when you go into especially someone new going into a repository, it can be really confusing to know what to do, where to go, what to put in. And so having as much clarification, on the maintainer's part as you can, then it really helps those trying to contribute to your repo as well.
Yeah. So I feel like we've covered a lot of stuff in terms of the maintainers, some Preptember. Do we want to maybe touch on what's going on for Hacktoberfest for the virtual coffee community? I don't know if anybody
Sure.
wants to start with that. I don't know if you want to go, Becca, or
Yeah, so last year Dan created a new site and an issue for members to work through together, which was really awesome. And so this year we already have the site, and we've been doing a lot to have members contribute to the site. Some of our members actually, IU and Chris Jarvis, both recently had pull requests merged in, and they're both in the chat today. But so we're working on that, but it's important to us again to have like a supportive community of people, and so we have a sign up for mentors, maintainers, and contributors, and so that way that everybody can be supported in the way that they want to. And then this year we're also running it as part of our monthly challenge, and so we have our monthly challenge project leads, RLE and Andrew Bush, working with us on it as well. And we're finding repositories that might be not necessarily virtual coffee people, but just
yeah,
friendly places to contribute. And so that's kind of the where we are right now. We're working through those details and getting ready
yeah,
for our event October 1st. But we're really fortunate that last year we got a lot of the support structure in place to be able to work through things this year and provide a good onboarding experience for all of our new contributors and maintainers. And I know, Kirk, you worked a lot with maintainers over the last year. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah. I mean, going back to our initial goal when we started this, which was, why does this feel so hard? Even though like everyone and their grandma on like social media is like, yeah, open source is great, you should all get into it. But like when you actually spoke to actual early career devs, they're like, I don't know. This feels super intimidating. I don't know where to start here. I just feel like I'm gonna mess up someone's project. And this was like a consistent theme every time. Um, and what ended up happening was like we realized like just because from the maintainer side, even though it seemed like to the maintainer, oh, this project's perfectly inviting, it's super good to look at, it's great. Um,
yeah,
that's not how it was being perceived. And it
Mhm.
turns out it really takes quite a bit of work to make someone feel welcome, especially when they're new to the project, especially when they're new to contributing in general, especially when they're new to Git, especially when they're new to GitHub, especially when they're new to like this
yeah,
entire scaffolding that we're all used to. And once you think about it like that, you're like, actually, this is a completely new environment. And we're basically telling people, yeah, go for it. And that's just
Mhm.
yeah,
real life works. Um, so yeah, that ended up becoming a lot of top of the maintainers, just about at every possible opportunity, you need to let people know that it is okay to work here. okay to be new, okay to have questions, okay to be confused, okay to ask for support. And a lot of that translates into a few things that you talked about: your labels, your description, your README, your getting started documentation. I know you all spent a lot of time like trying to make it as easy as possible for folks to get started, because that's really where people get tied up. Like it's very rare
Yeah.
that somebody stops like halfway through writing like a JavaScript function, right? Like you stop because you couldn't get it to run, you couldn't get it to install, you got in Git purgatory from which there is no escape, or like something has gone wrong and you don't know how to get out of it. You don't know how to get it support to
Yeah.
get out of it. So yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
our time was just like making maintainers aware of that, and then how can we head off a lot of those problems at the pass. And I feel like 80/20, having just really, really, really solid, up to date, what's this project, how to get it running, how to reach me if there's a problem, and an explicit, we will help you through your first PR. That's
Yeah.
kind of how you got to go to get there.
Yeah.
Dan, do
And
you
this
want
is
to talk
also
about some
where
of the
you can.
stuff that?
Yeah, no, go
No, go
ahead,
ahead,
Dan.
Hank.
I was just gonna say also, this is where you lean on your community too for help, you know, like like Kirk was saying, like Git. I remember when I started using Git, I was super intimidated. Like for my first pull request, I was like, this got to be perfect. Am I doing it right? I put it up, it wasn't perfect, but like, you know, it took me a while to get familiar with Git, and I'm definitely no Git expert, but there's a lot of common things that I'm pretty comfortable with now. But there's a learning curve to that, you know, and even that alone, like, because I've paired with several people, and then they're just like, okay, it's done. I'm not sure what I did to my branch or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of anxiety behind that, and so like definitely leaning on your community to help you out with that is super beneficial. And yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I never
Becca
heard what
was
Becca
leaning
wanted.
towards.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
know what she
yeah.
wanted me to talk
She, she,
about.
she, she said she said Becca Dan, so I figured it was like, you know, telepathic or something. So
Yeah, well, no, we didn't plan this out ahead of time. So
No, it's just you've done a lot to work on this year's, especially for setting things up for our members. So I just wanted to know if you wanted to share about that.
oh, I mean, we made a new like Hacktober. We had a Hacktoberfest site last year too, just for people to sign up. You know, for our members to sign up, and so we have contributors and mentors, and then and maintainers, right? And so we did that again. We're trying out some new stuff this year with Airtable and stuff, but hopefully, you can have some like live, like a dashboard, you know, so that we can, you know, you can go see who your mentees are,
okay.
etc. That kind of thing, which could be kind of cool. And then from our point of view, you know, we are, so, you know, like with helping our members be contributors for Hacktober. We did this last year, and we're going to do the same thing this year. And this year it's going to be on the 1st, which is a Friday. So we're using our lunch and learn our Hacktoberfest kickoff, and I haven't nailed down all the details yet. But last year we made a feature where it's add yourself to our members page, right? So we have our members page on the Virtual Coffee site. Just it lists all of our members and their, you know, file photo and stuff like that. And it was just so everybody could sort of get a meaningful PR in, but it was all the same
Okay.
one, right? So it wasn't like we had 30 people on the call and then we weren't like trying to nail down 30 different issues. You know what I mean? Everybody just,
Yeah.
we all kind of
Yeah.
did it together, and it was really fun. And so we have a similar this year too, and we're do that on the 1st. And then the issue will obviously stay open, but it's still open. The original one is still open because we get new members, you know,
Yeah.
it's the same sort of thing. And so it's like we do a call, we'll record it, do a kick, you know, but we do a kind of a group kickoff where we all do it together, you know, do the pull,
Yeah.
like look at the issue, fork, you know, the whole process, all that stuff. So we're going to be doing that again this year, and so that'll just be like, if you're doing the actual Hacktoberfest, count as one, you know, one of yours, because it is a meaningful
Yeah.
thing. It's adding to your, you know, it's like adding data to our site, and even if not, it's kind of a good practice, and we help, you know, kind of help people through it. It's not a complicated like code problem to solve. So that's like my thing that I've figured out over the last however long of helping people learn is people really struggle when you're trying to learn too much, and it's really easy to throw a bunch of stuff at people when they're starting out. And so if you're trying to learn Git and GitHub and whatever JavaScript or whatever it is, all at the same time, it's like it becomes very, very hard, and that's when people kind of drop out. So we are.
And we also have community members with all different backgrounds too.
Exactly.
So not one language focusing on solving something in JavaScript is not going to work for a lot of people.
Right. Absolutely, and it's also just impossible to create however many issues. You know what I mean? Like, like I suppose we could, but like that's hard work too. So, we'll point people out to the rest of the world for that. That's why we have our maintainers. We're collecting a bunch of maintainers and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Nick, you mentioned the co-working room before, and so this year we do have a sponsor for Hacktoberfest. Decentology is sponsoring this month long. And so we'll have a Hacktoberfest co-working room open for that. And so hopefully that'll provide a good space for maintainers to hang out and answer questions, or mentors, or anybody who's working on an open source issue. It's just nice to know that other people are working on them too, and you can co-work together. If you're having a problem, you can share your screen, and hoping to keep that as a really cool space where everybody can kind of grow together.
Yeah, for sure. And I gotta say, having paired with folks and see their excitement when they get their first pull request merge is pretty nice to see. It's that's all I gotta say.
Oh, and
I just want to add on that.
Oh, sorry, Christina.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say we were talking about, somebody said something about people helping each other and the community picking up and stuff like that, and it made me. I meant to do this while I was talking about it, but in the kickoff meeting last year, it was Kirk was talking about Git. So I don't use Git on the command line ever. I don't. I refuse to. It's the worst, and I don't know why anybody else does, but that's fine. But for this thing, I wanted to do it on the command line because I knew that everybody else preferred that, and so I practiced it a bunch of times, and then of course ran into trouble, or maybe one of the people, one of the members ran into trouble. I don't know what happened, but like there was Git trouble. There was Git trouble afoot, which everybody's has experienced. But I was trying to run this call, and Marie, one of our members, and she was I don't know what if new, but she was just
graduated.
Had just graduated. Was like this is at the time. This is a year ago. Just like swooped in on a rope and like saved me in the call, and like it was just like one of those examples of like the community, members just kind of all grouping together and helping out. That was really cool.
Yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say, Christina?
Yeah, I guess I have a few things to add to this just to help people out that are contributing. One, GitHub actually has a great learning area, education area where you can run through how to use Git, and it's really helpful. I've pointed out to a lot of people to do it. You run through, just setting up like a repo and putting in an issue and putting in a pull request and all those types of things. And so if you are intimidated before Hacktoberfest, that's a really good resource as well that you can do. It's right there on GitHub. You can delete the repo afterwards if you don't want that on there. So there's that. And then also, if you don't want to use the command line, I think people need to hear these things because people feel like they have to use the command line. So I think that was a great point to bring up, Dan. Use a GUI, use whatever you need to use to get the job done, and that works fine, right? Like that's
my
great.
advice, I want to give people advice to always do that, especially when they're starting out. But I struggle with that advice just because I don't want somebody to run into a job interview and then have the job interview person, like knock them on that. So that's why I try not to push it too hard. But personally, that's my jam. Like avoid the
Yeah.
command line
Yeah,
hacking.
I was lucky at my first job because it was that thing. It was like there's too much to learn. There's all this stuff. They told me they were just like, here, use this GUI. This is what you're gonna do. And sometimes you do get that support. But I agree. Sometimes if you go into an interview and they're like, you don't know how to use the command line, what? So you gotta kind
Yeah.
of balance that. But if you're working on your own stuff and you don't want to use the command line, just use what works for you. And I forgot my third point, so someone else can talk.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna reiterate what you both said, but like I always tell people, like whatever just use whatever makes you the most productive. If that's a GUI for something, great. If it's the command line, great. Like I started off using a GUI and then I kind of forced myself to learn the command line. It was more just a personal challenge, and now I use it pretty much most of the time. Sometimes, but even though I use the command line, sometimes I use a uh, it's open source software. I think it's called Fork, and I'll use that to sometimes just visualize some things in Git, because sometimes it's difficult to understand things in Git, even if you print it in like the console or whatever. But yeah, again, it's like whatever makes you the most productive. You know what I mean? Because like at the end of the day, it's you doing the work. But in terms of the job interviewer, like you're saying, Christina, maybe take it with a grain of salt, but like even if you prefer the GUI, maybe at least try to understand some of the basic Git commands, even if it's not what you do in your day-to-day. But like I think maybe I don't know. I don't want to give like you have to advice, like
Yeah,
it's
my
just more
point is like
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to understand the Git, like the concepts. Like it's important to understand what's happening in Git, and this doesn't mask
Yeah.
any of that. You just don't have to remember you don't have to remember anything for one thing, and
Yeah.
you don't have to like it's like it doesn't hide like what a fork, like what, or not forking, but what branching does, or hide what, like how merging works and stuff like that. It just it's
Yeah.
like you said, Nick, it makes me more productive, and that's why. But it is, I do not tell people to ignore Git or whatever, you know what I mean? Like understanding like
Yeah.
what happens when you do things is like, that's vital, like for sure.
Yeah.
It's
And,
it's just like a
and interview process is
I,
a whole other topic. So like let's not even go.
right.
Let's not go
yeah.
there. We've already gone there actually, but
Everyone
in
has
another.
their things they like to dive into more, or things they're just going to touch the surface area of, and I think that's okay. Like recently I started learning Linux with a couple coworkers, and we're like going like all the way back to like having to put Gentoo on our computer and doing all this stuff because I wanted to learn the command line more. But I used to use a GUI and that's what I liked and I was fine with it. But everyone's in different stages and doing what they want, and everyone dives into things differently. So that makes us all wonderful. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
We are all wonderful.
Yeah, I guess.
Awesome.
You're wonderful. Embrace
Yeah.
it.
Way to bring it down a few notches there, Kirk. Yeah, you're awesome. Perhaps.
That's
Yeah. Awesome. I'm kind of curious. We're getting close to time here, but I'm curious. In terms of Hacktoberfest, is there? I know some of you are maintainers as well on your own projects, but I'm curious if there's stuff you're interested in contributing to during Hacktoberfest. Uh, like I know at least I know I'm basing this on last year's stuff, but I know Kirk. What was the name of the game again? It's not Quarkle, is it? What was it? Quarto?
Porto.
Quarto, yeah.
Um, I'm wavering between, and I should probably make that decision soon since Hacktoberfest is literally in 8 days, of whether to reopen
That's 1
Quarto
month.
or get a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
project. I like game dev, so I don't know. I feel like I like game projects for teaching and learning because I feel like there's like a context there that's easy for folks to grasp.
Okay.
It's not as like targeted as say like a tool or a library, but like everyone gets the point of like, oh, this is a fun game. Like we're trying to make a game. Got it.
Yeah.
And then we can just like look at the code from there, and it's easy to say, well, okay, this issue makes the button look better, or this issue makes like so. We'll see if I can like self-bully myself into making a decision. But yeah, I will be doing my usual during the month of Anyone who wants to get into Elm or functional programming, I usually tell people like we can just take a session, hour and a half, and just pair up and tackle something and do that.
Cool. Um, I know for you, Becca, I'm basing a bit of this on last year. I know you have your postpartum wellness app. I know you're really interested in Web3 right now and stuff in the blockchain. Curious if you're gonna and I know at TensorFlow as well. I know you're gonna start streaming that, so I feel like you might dabble in that during Hacktoberfest, but just kind of curious.
Yeah, so last year I did my postpartum wellness app, which was React Native. Not an expert in anything at all, and definitely not React Native. It's a project that is special to me, and I would love to get back to it. But this year I am taking that focus in other directions because I think like exploring those spaces has potential to influence what I would do with the postpartum wellness app and like long-term goals that I have for creating better spaces for women and mental health. And so yeah, you're right, like I am going to be exploring those things, and I'm going to start streaming some TensorFlow JS stuff in a couple of weeks actually, and kind of hoping that that takes me towards the repositories that I want to work with, and always
Okay.
supporting our members and helping them as much as I can if they have questions or need support through the month.
Cool. Dan, I know you. I'm not putting anybody on the spot here, so but Dan, I know you got the virtual coffee site up last year, and that there was a lot of contributions going in there. You're a maintainer of that. You kind of alluded to. I think you'll be doing a bit of that this year again for potentially new members becoming, getting their first pull request in, and maybe. I imagine there's some issues in the repository as well in regards to the site. I'm not sure. I haven't looked, so hopefully I'm not wrong, but
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a part of the plan, and between that and probably the Hacktoberfest, site will be some ongoing improvements. We do a lot of content. The main site is a 11D site, and so a lot of the
okay.
content is actually in source control, and so that's actually kind of a cool way for members to make meaningful contributions to the site, and we're kind of again practice the flow and all that stuff without having to write a lot of code or that sort of thing. And
Yeah,
so yeah, that's going to be my main focus is virtual coffee stuff, I think, for the next month. I'm excited about it.
cool. Yeah.
What are you working on, Nick?
Yeah, well, I don't really count forum as, I mean, it will count towards, well, no, I don't count forum because we work in open source, but I haven't really done much with GraphQL in terms of like, aside from like Gatsby queries. We kind of talked about this on another stream, Christina, but I was looking into Lucia, who's one of our members, Lucia Sorchi. I think that's how you say her last name. I hope it is because I've been calling her that for like more
It
than a
is.
year
It is.
now. You told me it was when I had to say
Yeah,
her
okay.
name, so yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I know she works at a company called StepZen, and they have some open source initiatives there. I'm thinking of looking in there. I I might I'm definitely gonna catch some of Becca's streams on TensorFlow, so I might see if there's some repositories there. And I've been learning Rust. I've been kind of on hiatus a bit because we got kind of busy and stuff, but I'm gonna see if there's maybe some Rust repositories I could contribute to. I know Chris Biscardi, who does quite a bit with Rust. I think he has some open source projects. I know he's working on another project called Toast, which I think is closed source. I'm not positive about that, but I don't know. Those are kind of the things I'm thinking, but whatever comes my way, I guess. So,
Cool.
yeah, cool. I don't know. Sorry, I've been watching the last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm starting to get sad. Yeah.
That's not Brooklyn
No
Nine-Nine,
more.
but same actor.
No, that's Hot Rod. Which is another great movie,
Yeah.
which I reference a lot too.
Yeah, that's like my
Yes.
husband's favorite movie, and he makes me watch it all the time. And not my favorite movie, but makes him happy.
It's like low budget Saturday Night Live movie, which it makes me laugh even. Anyways, who knows? Maybe I'll put a pull request up to the Hot Rod movie.
Never seen
Yeah.
Just cool bean gifts all day long.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna create a cool beans repository, and maybe I'll just get people to submit their cool beans. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Could be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, is there anything we're gonna wrap it up here, I think, but Christina's we're gonna give some shameless plugs here. We've been a bunch of us on the forum team have been working on Codeland. Dan actually has been helping us with Codeland, so props to Dan.
Yeah. I hear
yeah.
your name mentioned all the time. Dan did this.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Dan did this.
All in a good context.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Lies.
But yeah, so Codeland Comp, we've got like a ton of people registered for it. If you are interested in
Over
still
4,000
attending,
people. Come hang out.
yeah, I wasn't sure if we were allowed to drop the number or not, but yeah, I think we're getting close to 5,000 now.
Also,
but,
some
yeah,
virtual coffee people are speaking at Codeland
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that's right. John O'Young
and Julia.
Julia Seidman's talking about documentation, I think. I feel like there's somebody else too. I'm not sure. But regardless, if you haven't registered yet, what's that?
I think Julia's covering imposter syndrome specifically for.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, definitely check those talks out. They're going to be streamed. Registration is pay what you want, starting off at $0 because it's an inclusive conference. We don't want to block anybody from being able to watch these things. So if you can donate to it, great in terms of the ticket sale. But like if you're not able to, it's a $0 thing. So I highly suggest checking it out. It's a really great conference. I attended my first one last year, virtually, boo pandemic, but it was really great. So yeah, definitely check it out. Yeah, I use just saying in the chat. Yeah, it's definitely Julia and Jono giving talks there. So cool.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing Hacktoberfest at, like Christina said, on forum. So we'll probably have something mentioning that shortly. I don't have a day for that. I'll let
everyone's been in Codeland Conf mode at forum, but all next week people are focusing on Hacktoberfest. So you should hear more after this week.
Yeah, and we'll be streaming a bunch with that. So check that out. And last order of business, we're next week we have Ciora Ford on the stream. She's at Apollo, the GraphQL powerhouse. So definitely looking forward to chatting with her. And then we've got some other awesome guests coming up in the next month or so. So definitely don't forget to tune in. And just wanted to say thanks to everybody, friends, for coming by. This was really great. I always love hanging out with all of you, but I'm just so glad you were able to come on the stream finally. Yeah, so take care, everybody. And yeah, I'm going to drop links where you can give a follow to all these lovely people. And we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
See you later.
Bye.